For a long time, I thought I had the kind of life other women envied. A cozy home just outside of Seattle, a husband who came home from work every night, and two little boys who filled the house with laughter and sticky peanut butter kisses. To anyone driving past our yard, we looked like the picture of suburban happiness. My name is Alison Carter, 32 years old, a full-time mom, and yes, I've never been a size 6. I'm curvy, I'm plus size, and I've lived with this body all my life. To me, it's just who I am. But to my mother-in-law, Grace, it was ammunition. When I first married Tom, Grace wore pearls and polite smiles, always cooing about family traditions and how wonderful it was to finally have a daughter. But behind the smile, I caught the way her eyes lingered on me, on my waist, on my arms, and then the comments started. At first, little things that could be brushed off. It must be hard keeping up with the kids at your size. Or, don't worry, dear, I left the butter off your portion, you don't need the extra calories. Always said sweetly, like she was doing me a favor. Tom never noticed. Or maybe he didn't want to. He'd just laugh and say, "That's Mom. She means well." But I knew better. Grace's kindness was never kindness, it was a knife wrapped in lace. And that knife was about to cut deeper than I could have imagined. Before we dive into how I turned her cruelty into her downfall, make sure you hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. This story is one you won't forget. The first time I truly felt it was at Sunday dinner in Spokane, at Grace's house. The table was set like something out of a magazine: roast beef, glistening with rosemary butter, mashed potatoes whipped into silky clouds, a chocolate tart cooling by the window. Tom got a thick slice of beef. Richard, her husband, had salmon fillets drizzled with lemon glaze. And then there was me. Grace slid a plate in front of me: steamed broccoli, a spoonful of plain rice, and a glass of water. Not even a drizzle of sauce. She smiled like she'd just gifted me diamonds. "There you go, Alison. Nice and light. You'll thank me later." I froze, fork in hand. I had never once asked her to help me with my meals. I had never once complained about my body. Yet, here she was, announcing to everyone at the table that I needed to be monitored, managed, corrected. When I glanced at Tom, he was already chewing, oblivious. "That's Mom," he said later in the car. "She just cares about health." But I wasn't blind. This wasn't about health. It was about control. It didn't stop at dinner, either. At Christmas, when she passed out boxes of artisan truffles, mine was different, sugar-free, in an old dusty wrapper. "Better for you," she said, with that same porcelain smile. On my birthday, she handed me a blouse 2 sizes too small, laughed lightly, and said, "A little motivation never hurts." Every word was dressed as concern. Every gift was wrapped like kindness. But underneath, I heard the truth loud and clear. You are not good enough the way you are. And the worst part, everyone else seemed to believe her. It became a pattern I couldn't ignore. Every family gathering, there was always something to remind me that I didn't belong. When Grace made hot cocoa for the boys and Tom, mine was always forgotten. If she baked pies for Thanksgiving, she'd hand me a slice barely an inch wide, then pat my hand and whisper, "Portion control. Dear, you'll thank me one day." But the gifts, that's when it got cruel. One year, She handed me a glossy wrapped package at Christmas. I pulled back the paper to find a book with the title blazing across the cover: How to Lose 30 Pounds in 30 Days. She clapped her hands together, eyes sparkling like she'd just given me a rare treasure. I thought of you the moment I saw it. Alison, isn't that perfect? Everyone laughed politely, as if it were a joke. I forced a smile, but inside, shame burned like acid. On my birthday, she gave me a silk blouse, size 6. I've never been a 6, not in my life. When I held it up, confused, she tilted her head and said sweetly, "Well, maybe by next year." But the moment that cut the deepest was at my son's birthday party. Grace snapped photos all afternoon, gathering everyone into little groups. Later, she uploaded them to Facebook with the caption, "My 3 favorite people in the whole world." The photo showed Tom, Richard, and the birthday boy. My face had been cropped out completely. When I confronted her, she just smiled, her voice dripping honey. "Oh, you must be mistaken. The camera cuts off people all the time." But I knew the truth. She was cutting me off on purpose, slice by slice, laugh by laugh, erasing me not just from pictures, but from the family itself. And Tom, he brushed it aside. "You're reading too much into it." "Ali, she doesn't mean anything by it." But I did mean something to her, to Grace. I meant less. It all came to a breaking point one summer weekend when Tom and I took the boys back to Spokane. The plan was simple: let the kids spend time with their grandparents. And maybe, just maybe, I could keep my guard down for a few days. That afternoon, Tom ran errands with his dad, and the boys were napping upstairs. I sat on the patio, finally enjoying a quiet breath of warm air. When Grace appeared at the sliding glass door, she was holding a delicate porcelain plate, the kind with little gold edges, and on it sat a row of chocolate truffles dusted in cocoa. "I brought you something sweet," she said, voice soft, almost grandmotherly. "Belgian truffles, a little treat for a tired mama." For a second, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe she had finally done something nice for me, without strings, without shame. But something about the way she set the plate down too careful, too expectant, made my stomach tighten. The chocolates looked off. Their surface was matte, not glossy. One had a small crack in the shell, and the smell was faint, almost chemical. Still, I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of suspecting. So I thanked her, picked one up, and bit down. It wasn't sweet. It was bitter, grainy, and wrong. My teeth crunched against something that wasn't supposed to be inside a truffle. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. But Grace was watching me too closely. Her lips curved, but her eyes glittered with something sharp. "Yours is special," she said. "I made sure of it." My stomach dropped. I set the rest aside, wrapping them quickly in a napkin. "I'll save the others for later," I muttered. She didn't protest. She didn't need to. The damage was already done. An hour later, the cramps began. Sharp, stabbing pains tore through my abdomen. My skin went clammy, my vision blurred. I barely made it to the downstairs bathroom before collapsing on the cold tile, shaking and nauseous. My throat burned, my body twisted in waves of pain that left me gasping. When Tom finally came home, he found me pale and trembling. "Ali, what happened?" "Something I ate," I whispered, Too weak to explain, he helped me upstairs, brought me tea, tucked me under the covers like I was fragile glass. But I didn't tell him about the chocolates. Not yet. I needed more than a hunch. I needed the truth. The next morning, as I carried a bag of trash to the bin outside, something caught my eye. A crumpled silver foil wrapper, wedged against the side of the bag. I pulled it out with the tip of a spoon. Across the faded label were the words Diet Slim, Appetite Suppressant, Choose. Expired 3 years ago. My blood ran cold. Grace hadn't given me chocolates. She had given me old weight loss supplements, disguised as truffles. Not only meant to humiliate me, but to make me physically sick. I slipped the wrapper into my pocket and kept it there all day, feeling its edges press against my thigh like a reminder this wasn't in my head. It wasn't paranoia. It was proof. That night, after the boys were asleep, I laid the wrapper on the kitchen counter and showed it to Tom. He squinted at the label, frowning. She probably didn't realize. He said, "It's not like she checks every date." I stared at him, disbelief rising in my throat. "Tom, she handed them only to me, no one else. She even said mine was special." He shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. "Maybe it was an accident. She's been cleaning out the pantry accident." My voice cracked. "She's been doing things like this for years. This isn't forgetfulness. It's targeted." Tom sighed heavily, refusing to meet my eyes. "Ali, I love you, but you're making this into something it might not be." "She means well." I felt my chest tighten. He still didn't see it, or maybe he didn't want to. But I knew, deep in my gut, this was no accident. Grace wasn't just shaming me anymore. She was trying to break me down from the inside out, and I couldn't let her win. The next morning, while Tom busied himself fixing a leaky faucet in the garage, I slipped into the kitchen with my phone and dialed the only person I trusted to believe me, my brother, Evan. He lives down in Sacramento, 2 years younger than me, works in IT retail, and has always been the kind of person who sees through people faster than anyone else. When he picked up, his voice was cheerful, casual. "Hey, sis, what's up?" I hesitated for a long moment, staring at the silver wrapper burning a hole in my pocket. Then the words spilled out. I told him everything: the chocolates, the pain, the wrapper with Diet Slim stamped across it. And, for the first time, I admitted out loud what I'd been too afraid to say. She's doing this on purpose. "Evan, Grace is trying to make me sick." Silence stretched on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought he didn't believe me either. Then his voice came back, low and steady. "Ali, you need to set up cameras." I blinked. "What cameras? Evan, this isn't some crime drama. It's my mother-in-law." "Exactly," he said sharply. "Which means you'll never convince Tom without proof. She's been gaslighting you for years. You need to catch her in the act." My stomach twisted. He wasn't wrong. Every time I'd confronted Grace, she'd smiled and twisted the knife deeper. Every time I'd gone to Tom, he'd waved it away, my word against hers, without evidence. I was invisible. Evan's tone softened. "Sis, you've carried this alone long enough. Let me help." Small cameras, motion activated, cheap, discreet. I'll send you a set tomorrow. Just promise me you'll use them. I pressed my hand to my eyes, fighting back the sting of tears. Do you really think she'll try again? I don't think. He said firmly. I know. People like Grace don't stop until they're forced to. And in that moment, I hated how right he was. 3 days later, a package arrived at our door. Tom thought it was some tool order, but when I opened it in private, my breath caught. Nestled inside the box was a set of 5 button-sized cameras, a pocket Wi-Fi router, and a handwritten note from Evan, don't wait for another special treat. Record everything. I held the tiny devices in my hand, the weight of them heavier than steel. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't just enduring. I was preparing. Because if Grace wanted to play this game, she had no idea who she was up against. 2 weeks later, we drove to Whidbey Island for the long weekend Grace had so graciously arranged. She called it a family retreat, the kind of wholesome getaway where everyone bonds over board games and fresh seafood. But for me, it felt like a stage she had carefully set. And this time, I wasn't walking in blind. The cabin sat at the edge of the woods, damp with spring mist, pine needles clinging to the gravel driveway. From the outside, it looked quaint, with 2 porches and flower boxes under the windows. Inside, though, it was small, too small. Just 3 bedrooms clustered around a single open kitchen with one long wooden dining table stretching across the center. A perfect place to watch everything, a perfect place to trap someone. Grace met us at the porch in a quilted vest and her signature pearl earrings, Richard behind her with a thermos in hand. So good to see you all, she cooed, hugging the boys tightly before turning her eyes on me. They flicked over my waistline for just a second before she said, Alison, you look rested. I forced a smile. Thanks. So do you. Tom was already hauling bags inside, trying to settle the boys into bunk beds. Grace gave us the grand tour even though the house was barely 200 square feet. She and Richard would take the master. The boys got the bunks. Tom and I were given the last room, a narrow space with 2 twin beds and a closet that barely shut. The kitchen was shared. Grace reminded us, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. That first night, dinner was roast chicken and salad. Grace plated everyone's food except mine, which she handed to me last. My portion skinless breast, steamed vegetables, no potatoes, no bread, a lighter meal for a lighter step, she said sweetly. Tom chuckled like it was harmless, but my jaw ached from holding back words. When the house fell silent that night, I moved, slowly, carefully. I unpacked the small pouch Evan had sent. 5 button-sized cameras, a portable router, codes I had already memorized. Camera 1 went inside the kitchen cabinet corner, angled toward the prep counter. Camera 2, above the refrigerator, catching the sink and trash. Camera 3, hidden as a coat hook in the hallway just outside Grace's room. Camera 4, tucked inside a vase on the long dining table. Camera 5, in the corner of our bedroom just in case. By 2 a.m., everything was online, streaming to my laptop locked inside the closet. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't just reacting. I was ready. The next morning, Grace was already in the kitchen, humming as she chopped herbs. Good morning, she chirped when I walked in. I let you sleep in. Tom was outside with the boys, helping them search for bugs in the backyard. Grace poured me tea before I even asked. I thought we could have a little lunch together, just the two of us, she said. Then she opened a sleek white paper box, the kind you'd expect from an upscale deli. Inside was a bento arrangement, bright vegetables, rice, and slices of glossy fish, imported ingredients, very exclusive. You deserve something special. Alison. Her tone made my stomach clench. She placed the box in the fridge. A neat label, written in looping cursive, Alison. Not Tom, not Richard, not the boys, just me. That afternoon, while the kids napped and Tom went for a walk with his dad, I slipped into the bedroom, shut the door, and opened my laptop. My pulse thundered as I scrolled back through the footage until the timestamp hit mid-morning. There she was, Grace, alone in the kitchen, gloves on her hands. She pulled a small Tupperware container from her purse, clicked it open, and tilted it toward the counter. My breath caught. Inside were blister packs of old pills, diet suppressants, the kind banned years ago. The expiration date printed in faded ink. She took out a pill, crushed it between two spoons, and sprinkled the powder carefully over the rice in the bento box marked Alison. She smoothed the grains with her finger, humming all the while. I covered my mouth with my hand, my stomach turning. This wasn't just spite anymore. It wasn't just body shaming wrapped in fake kindness. This was deliberate, calculated harm. She wanted me to eat it. She wanted me to choke on it. She wanted proof of her words made flesh, that I was weak, sick, not good enough to stand in her family. I paused the footage, staring at her frozen face on the screen. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt something sharper, resolve. Because this time, Grace had no idea I was watching. And when the time came, she was going to watch me, too. The final night of the trip, Grace gathered us all around the dining table with the excitement of a hostess about to unveil a grand finale. Each place setting gleamed with gold string-tied boxes, neatly labeled in her perfect cursive. Tom, Richard, the boys, and… She paused, her eyes locking on me with a glint. Alison. She placed mine directly in front of me, her hand lingering just a second too long. I asked the deli to make yours custom, she announced. Extra delicate? For someone as sensitive as you? Her smile was sweet, but her eyes were daring me to eat. Tom, distracted, just grinned. Wow, Mom, this must have cost a fortune. I didn't touch the box. I didn't even untie the ribbon. Instead, I pushed back my chair, stood slowly, and crossed the room. Every step felt like thunder in my ears. Without a word, I lifted the lid of the trash can and dropped the bento inside. The room froze. What the hell are you doing? Tom's voice cracked with disbelief. That was 150. Alison Grace's voice went shrill, sharp. That was made especially for you. I turned, walked calmly back to the table, and set my laptop down beside her dainty teacup. You're right, I said evenly. It was made especially for me. Let me show you how. My hands didn't tremble as I clicked play. The grainy video filled the screen. Grace, slipping on latex gloves. Grace, pulling the Tupperware from her purse. Grace, crushing the pill between spoons and dusting it across the rice labeled Alison. Gasps echoed around the table. My oldest son whimpered, covering his face. Tom's fork clattered against his plate. Oh my God, he whispered. I froze the frame. Still think she just means well. Tom Grace shot to her feet, her composure shattering like glass. This is absurd edited. Anyone could have made that edited. I snapped, my voice like steel. From 3 different camera angles, I switched to the second feed her profile. Clear as day. The tweezers, the pill, my name written on the box. Tom's chair screeched as he shoved back. His face went pale. Mom, tell me this isn't real. For a moment, I thought she might lie again, pretend, but something inside her cracked wide open. Her face twisted, and the words poured out like venom. She doesn't belong here, Grace spat, jabbing a finger at me. She's never belonged. Look at her. Fat, lazy, taking up space she doesn't deserve. Do you know how ashamed I am every time we go out in public and people see her standing next to you? The boys flinched. Tom's jaw trembled. Richard's normally calm expression hardened into stone. Grace kept going, voice rising, hysterical. From the moment you brought her home, she ruined everything. She trapped you with those children, weighed you down, made you forget the family that actually mattered. She thinks she can waltz in here with her flabby arms and her smug little smile and act like she's worthy of you. She's disgusting. Her words sliced through the room, cruel and naked. The mask of kindness she had hidden behind for years was gone. What stood there now was raw hatred. And for the first time, I didn't shrink under it. I didn't feel shame. I felt fire, because Grace had just condemned herself with her own tongue. In front of everyone, she had tried to manipulate. The room was thick with silence after Grace's outburst, her words still burning in the air like acid. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Tom, still pale, his hands trembling, broke the silence. Pack your things, he said, his voice low but firm. His eyes never left his mother's face. We're leaving. Tonight? Grace staggered forward, reaching for him, panic flashing across her face. Tom! No, you don't understand. I did it for you. For your future. She's... He recoiled, his hand snapping up like a barrier. Stop. Just stop. I can't unsee this. I can't unhear what you said. You tried to poison my wife in front of my children. You've crossed a line you can't come back from. Our sons clung to me, wide-eyed and shaken, as Richard quietly stood, his expression carved from stone. Go upstairs, he told the boys gently. Help your mother pack. Tom grabbed his coat, his voice shaking with fury as he turned back to Grace. If you come near my family again, Mom, so help me, I'll make sure you never see us again. Ever. Her face twisted, a mix of desperation and rage. You're choosing her over your own mother, she screamed. But Tom didn't answer. He walked past her, brushing her hand away when she tried to grab his sleeve. He only stopped when he reached me, pressing his palm firmly to the small of my back, guiding me toward the stairs. His silence said more than any words could. That night, we drove home in a blur of headlights and tears. My body shook the entire ride, but not from fear anymore, from relief. Tom finally saw. He finally believed. The next morning, I walked into the police station with Evan by my side. I handed over the hard drives, the videos, the audio files, all the evidence we had collected. The officer on duty didn't even blink before filing an emergency restraining order. Within 48 hours, Grace was officially forbidden from contacting me, Tom, or the children. Her voice, once a constant shadow in my life, was silenced by law. When the papers arrived, stamped and signed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: safety. For the first time, I tucked my boys into bed without double checking the locks 3 times. For the first time, I kissed Tom goodnight without the weight of Grace's ghost hanging over us. It wasn't the end, not yet, but it was the first real step toward freedom. Weeks turned into months, and though the storm had passed, the wreckage still lingered. Tom carried the guilt in his shoulders: guilt for not seeing the truth sooner, guilt for letting his mother's poison seep into our marriage for so long. One evening, after putting the boys to bed, he sat across from me at the kitchen table. His eyes were tired, but clearer than they had ever been. "Ali," he said softly, "I made you fight this alone for too long. I don't want our kids to grow up carrying that weight. We're starting therapy, all of us, together." And so, we did, week after week. We sat in that little office with beige walls, our sons drawing quietly in the corner, while Tom and I unraveled years of hurt. I spoke my truth, sometimes through tears, sometimes through clenched teeth. Tom listened, and for the first time, he didn't defend her. He defended me. Little by little, I began to stand taller. I started running again, not to shrink myself into someone else's ideal, but to feel my lungs fill with strength. I caught myself smiling in the mirror, not at perfection, but at resilience. The boys thrived too, without Grace's shadow looming over family dinners. Laughter came easier. The house felt lighter, like we'd finally exorcised a ghost. And Grace, she faded into silence. Word spread in the family about what she had done, and the invitations to holidays stopped coming. The phone stopped ringing. Her empire of control crumbled, leaving her exactly where she had always feared most: alone. Sometimes, I still catch my breath when I think about how close she came to breaking us. But then I look at Tom reading bedtime stories, or feel my son's arms around my waist, and I know we survived. No, more than survived. We reclaimed our lives. Grace may have wanted to starve me, to shrink me, to erase me, but in the end, it was her world that withered, and mine finally began to bloom.